So let's start. For a couple of minutes, watch a video and go in with absolutely no biases. Just imagine that you have no idea about history, geography, polity, no idea about monsoon, southeast, northwest, whatever. And make one core conclusion about whatever you see in the video. That's it. Okay. It could differ for each one of you. No one is going to be right. No one is going to be wrong. So do not fret when you are cold called to give your opinions on the video. Works? All right, let's hear from you. Maitri, what do you think? Any conclusion? It could be about anything. It could be about Orientalism. It could be about Western person giving opinions about India. It could be about how geography is linking with history, so on and so forth.
I think it's about how geography is linking with history, how the colonial people use the nature to get a better access to the subcontinent.
Okay, let me check with Varsha. Varsha, what do you think?
Yes, I was just trying to understand from that person. He was trying to understand our geography of India, and he was trying to understand the monsoon and the weather, and maybe he was trying to get the perspective about how Indians or how the Indian geography and the winds and all. Maybe I was able to conclude this only.
Okay, anyone who has a very stark opinion about whatever was being discussed. Pratham, what are your thoughts? And then we can talk to Sudhamini.
Am I audible?
Yes, Pratham, you are.
According to what I think, the video was basically about how Westerners use the winds, like how winds to take access to like particular time during July they came. They use the winds as a help.
Got it. I think this is something similar to what Gayatri also mentioned. Who was the next person in line?
Me.
Go on. Sudhamini.
I think the video highlights the problem of written history as to how discovery of these winds has been made by people who are trying to find the route to India. But in reality, the indigenous people in India knew about the winds all along because they were using it for various, trade and everything that had to do with the port and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's a good perspective. And you are correct to some extent, Sudhamini. I love that thought. Twinkle, what are your thoughts?
Hello, so am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So in the video, the person says that, the West did not know about this wind system, but the Greeks and the Romans knew about it during ancient times. So that probably highlights the mentality of the West to not acknowledge things or knowledge that comes from India or other subcontinents or their colonies. For example, if we take yoga as an example, we Indians did not embrace yoga unless it got scientific relevance or acceptance from the West. So that is one social cause or social phenomena that we can observe, that the West has a habit of dismissing anything that does not come from their culture or which they do not understand, they dismiss.
Fascinating. I think all of you are correct to some extent. And we will pick and choose certain aspects as we move along in the journey of Story of India. But before I begin, I also want to ask you, how many of you have heard of a term called Orientalism? What is it? Because we will come across this problem of Orientals writing our history, and then when we decipher our own history. What is it? What are your thoughts?
So from the perspective of Orientalism, adding to what the video we just saw, one thing I was thinking is that from the video I could see, based on the understanding that they had, was probably I could see whatever they knew about our country was from the time they were coming to our country and leaving. So I thought like from July to August, November, they were coming to India and they were going back. So I thought whatever they were learning about our country, maybe the period they were here were the facts and things that they heard about our country were the fiction. And I cannot like trust the things that they would say for a time that they weren't here. And about adding that to Orientalism, this is where I think comes. So they have not seen the period when they were not reaching India. So they have a lot of stories and a lot of exaggerated accounts which add up to their version of our country, and compounding the fact that there is always like an understanding of being a little bit of superior to it.
Okay.
So any account that they would put up for our country would be a little dismissive as well.
Fair enough. Ikshu, what are your thoughts? What is Orientalism? Can you explain this to the entire class? You are not audible to me.
Hello.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, sorry. So actually the term is most commonly associated with the philosopher Edward Said, and he used to talk about Orientalism and Occidental. So that stands for the East and the West respectively. And it's actually how the written discourse, which has always mostly come from the West, would always see as Oriental, or the East as exotic and unknown and to be discovered and things like that. So it's like a land of the mystery or the unknown, and
Okay.
it just, yeah. So, sorry.
Fantastic. A huge round of applause here for Ikshu. And she is right. To some extent, and in very layman's term, it is the study of the East by the Westerners. And Edward Said, I don't know if Oxford has a business school, the Said School of Business. Not sure if it's named after Edward Said. But Orientalism is, to some extent, that conception. And we will come across this problem of Orientalists writing our own history as we move ahead in the journey. Today is the first lesson of beginnings of history. So I want you all to be aware of the fact that you have to always question what is usually written in many standard books, because they will have their own biases. They will perhaps write that India got united because of the British, like we discussed in the last class. But that is not true. We had so many great civilizations before that. Mauryans, Gupta, they ruled over large tracts of India and united India to some extent. Now, as we move towards history, we also need to understand that history is very much and intricately linked to geography. And you will read through this after the post read. In books, it's mentioned, history and geography are two eyes. We can't understand one without the other. But can anyone give me an example of how history is also linked to economics? Any example? Because we have this budget season going on. Can anyone give an example of how history is linked to economics? Samatrato, you will have to have your video on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wanted to speak about the barter system during the Mohenjo-daro Harappa times. So that
Okay.
was unique back then. It was started by then.
So
That's
all those
innovation
who have no
for-
idea what is Mohenjo-daro Harappa, do not worry. We will delve deeper into those civilizations of Bronze Age in some time. Go on, Samatrato.
Yeah, so that's what. So they started the barter system. It is the most primitive form of, before currency existed. So that is an economic.
I cannot
system.
conclusively say that Harappans started the barter system.
It's sort of, as
Okay.
far as my knowledge goes. Yeah.
Great attempt. Any other example? Can anyone think of? Let's talk to Prerna.
So could we just say that the European invasion, it was based on economic, because they were facing that the Arabs were charging a lot of fees. So they had to find a measure to counter that. And that's the reason all of the Indian, their discovery started. That way.
Can we even say that history is linked to economics or economics is linked to history? Can you doubt that? So we are all in congruence saying that both the aspects are interlinked, right? Okay, one last try and then I'll give my thoughts. Veronica, what are your thoughts?
Economics and trade started after the settling of people into townships. So when people started settling
Don't
into
talk about
townships,
how it started. Just tell me, if in modern economics, in modern world, can you think of examples where both the aspects are intertwined?
I think history cannot go without economics.
So let's
Countries
assume that
run
you're
on
sitting in your
economics.
UPSC interview and the panel asks you, Ronika, can you give me an example from the modern world where you can conclusively say that history goes along with economics?
I cannot think of any one example right now.
Okay. Gangadhar, one last try.
So what I would say is in the current world scenario, I mean, like now we have a free trade across the borders. I mean, like when the LPG started, I mean, in 1991, the liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So the trades between the countries became borderless, and I think that was a new kind of history which was started at that point of time, which is related to the economics.
Okay.
So I think that would be a modern thing.
Fair enough. All of you unraise your hands. And so a few days ago, I think a couple of days ago, in fact, I was watching a podcast. And in that podcast, there was this economist who had worked with Ministry of Finance for 7-8 years. And that economist was asked a question that I don't understand why UAE has 0 taxes on personal income, but India has a lot of taxes. That economist gave an answer, which I thought was absolutely wrong. But can anyone give me an example? You know, what would be your reasoning? Why is that the case? Aringam?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's probably because the population isn't as huge, and moreover, the natural resources per, I'm guessing, per person isn't as small compared to India. So there's quite a lot of natural resources.
That's a fair enough. That's a fair answer. An economist gave a similar answer. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you're following through the trajectory of our wonderful official from Ministry of Finance. So the economist said that, you know, look at the natural resources in UAE or Saudi Arabia, and look at the natural resources in India. There are so many resources in those countries. So it makes a lot of sense to give the citizens of that country some liberty. Any fundamental flaw with this argument? Okay, let me just check with Ronika again. I hope you have an answer this time.
Yes. So basically, most of the taxes are given by the top 3% of the country. So 65% of the people of the country are not even giving taxes. The 45 middle percent, the middle class is only giving the taxes. So 0 taxes.
Let's assume that you're talking to Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. You know, you're talking to Rashid Al Maktoum, the Prime Minister of UAE, and you are trying to convince them, you know, countries like India, they tax their citizens. Countries like the US, they tax their citizens. Should we do something about our country? It's a good source of revenue for us. Should we or should we not? Let me check with Deepali. What are your thoughts, Deepali? So let's you know, you're talking to Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi, and you know, you're debating that should we tax our citizens?
I seriously have no clue about this.
You all have to have some opinions. You're going to be policymakers in years to come. At least have some opinions. Yogita, what are your thoughts? I can't hear you, Yogita. Okay, let's give Gurpreet one last shot, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Gurpreet, after you.
Am I audible?
Yes. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so I mean, just continuing on the fact that, you know, you told that like top 3-4% of people are the ones who are actually paying tax. Someone from the you know, from the call told the same, and there's just one point that I'd like to add over here. You know, is that a larger majority of the people working there are basically not the citizens of that country itself. So, which means that how would you tax somebody who's not us? I mean, obviously you can tax if the income is generated in that country. But there's one point over there that you know, I'd like to add here is that a majority of them are not citizens.
No, I mean, if I'm working in the US, even though I'm not a citizen of the US, I'm working in McKinsey or BCG, I will pay taxes in the US.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Even as a student, if you're studying at Harvard or Stanford, you will have to file your tax returns. And if you are earning in some way or the other, you will have to pay taxes. Okay. See, the point is you will need to delve deeper into things. Okay. You need to further analyze you're talking to Mohammed bin Salman, his father, his grandfather. They've all been the rulers of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is not a democracy. It's an autocracy or monarchy to some extent. Same is about the UAE. If tomorrow they were to tax their citizens, what will citizens say? There should be no taxation without representation. The symbol that was the symbol of resistance during the American Revolution. There can be no taxation without representation. Economists somehow, the honorable economist with Ministry of Finance, she somehow forgot to take that into consideration. At the end of the day, you have to rule over large swaths of population, and you can't be ruling them without legitimacy. So minimizing taxes is one way. Today resources, the natural resources argument, if you were to stretch it further, are much more in the US. But US today taxes its citizens, not just within the US, but across the globe. Even India does not do that. So any argument that you think of needs a holistic understanding of polity, economics, or even geography. So in today's class, we will largely be covering all the peripherals around history. We will delve deeper into history in some time, but before we talk in lens about history, it's also important to learn about various facets of geography, at least the basics of geography, so that you can further analyze India, basics of polity that you need to further analyze the history of India. In the end, we will also talk about globalization. Some of the largest civilizations were global civilizations. The Harappans, Mesopotamians, the Babylonians, the Chinese, they all traded enormously. Now, can anyone tell me how is history of India influenced by its geography? How is history of India influenced by its geography? I think Michael Woods in that video gave some hints. Okay, monsoons, the offset of monsoons introduced India to Greco-Romans, who came into India to trade for the spices in Kerala. Can you think of any other example how history and geography of India are interlinked? Let me call the person with my favorite name, Naman. Go on.
Hi, Naman. I think the invasions in the medieval era were from the northern end because the navigation was not developed in that time. So that is an example of it.
Okay, fair enough. Shishrata, what are your thoughts? And then we talk to Ananya. How is history of India influenced by its geography? Simple. Let's assume that you will ask this question in UPSC mains. How will you answer it?
Thank you, sir. I think it's the first conversation for me here. Sir, I'm not talking about this right now. I raised my hand for a question I had. You talked about the monarchy and democracy difference. And I think it's also a reason that taxes in India are because of democracy. But we see go before in monarchy also, when we had in India, all the empires, even that time taxes was laid on general people. How do you say that it's only because of democracy that we can have taxes? Even in the monarchy also we had taxes. It's not like for everything, but for at least for the works which were general people given or done by people, it was there.
Fair enough. At the end of the day, I would want you to note down two things. The first point from here on is never make absolutist statements. Only because of this, only because of that. Because you need to figure out a diplomatic way. And diplomatic way is never the absolutist way. Okay? And secondly, your point about taxes, in any scenario, it has to be legitimate. There were taxes, the British Empire taxed the American citizens for a very long time, until the American Revolution took place. The Mughals also taxed a small set of population. I think if you were to analyze the data from the medieval age, you would realize that all the taxes, if they were to be distributed, and I can showcase the data. I think I'm picking up data from Rajiv Malhotra's book. He recently wrote a very fascinating book. And it mentioned that in the Mughal age, at the time of Shah Jahan, approximately 700 people, or the nobles in that age, they were given the large swaths of resources of that age. there was so much inequality. Okay. So at the end of the day, it boils down to how legitimately you're able to rule. Your legitimacy cannot be questioned. If today India is able to maintain its democracy, by the way, on a personal note, I will highly doubt. No country is fully democratic. There are elected democracies. There are democratically elected dictators. But I think Gangadhar got my point about democratically elected dictators. So don't take things from the absolutist sense. I hope that answers your question, Shrishthata.
Thank you.
Pratham, one last try, and then we move ahead in the journey. But I think Ananya was in the waiting line before you. Ananya, after you.
Okay, so the question was that how does India's history influences geography or the other way around? Like both are interconnected. So the two things that comes, you will say something?
Let me just clarify the question. How history of India is also influenced by its geography.
Okay, so the 2 points that comes top of my mind is one that I remember when reading the NCERTs. The Europeans come from a climate which is kind of cooler than our tropical climate. So they set up the military, like the camps were set up in the Shimla regime, because they were not the colonial leaders that were coming. They were not accustomed to the climates of the West Bengal Calcutta part. So they took their regime camps to Shimla because of the climatic regime which was suitable to them. That's one point, that how geography influences history. And the second point that comes to my mind is that in the Indus Valley Civilization, how did we know about what type of agricultural practices were done that influenced what type of economy was in Indus Valley Civilization? So cotton seeds were found after carbon dating. They were found that they were cotton seeds. So that's how we kind of.
To all those who have no idea about Indus Valley Civilization, do not fret. We'll talk in length about it. Yes, Ananya, go on.
So silk was like a type of common cotton thread was found, and rice seeds were found, like to know about the farming techniques, to know about what kind of economy was it. We first took the help of what type of geographical practices were done. Like geography influences the agricultural practices, and that influences the economy, and that in turn influences the historical procedures and the processings. So that's how geography influences Indian history.
Okay,
and of course,
great. I think like I tend to say, if you were to attempt these answers in mains, you will not get a 0 score. You will get 1 mark or 2 mark. But in order to get the highest marks, you need to be very structured in your analyses. And for the structure, you need to think from first principles. We spoke briefly about first principles in the last class. But to reiterate, how will I go about thinking about this? For that, I will have to think about what is India's geography. What are the first 2-3 things that come to my mind when I'm looking at India's geography? The elephant in the room is definitely the Himalayan ranges, right? What would be the second thing? The Indo-Gangetic Plains. What could be the third thing? The Southern Peninsula. And I look at these 3 buckets and see how these aspects are influencing India's history. So let me just check this with Kamashetty. Can you give me an example how Himalayan ranges have impacted India's history? Now I'm delving deeper into the macro aspect of how history is being impacted by geography.
Sir, can you please re-ask the question?
Yeah, the question is simple: how Himalayan ranges impacted India's history?
Sir, firstly, from the invasion perspective, we were always isolated from the rest of the Euro-Asian plain because it shielded us. So even though invasions were going on beyond the Himalayas, we were quite isolated from the rest of it. But once the way was found, after that invasions took place, and this is the invasion perspective. Then the trade perspective comes.
Okay, hold on. So I have questions. I have concerns about your first point. Great attempt.
Okay,
Great attempt. Make all the mistakes here. See, we all have this belief that Himalayas always stood as a natural barrier against all the invasions. It's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you look at Himalayas or Himalayas that Americans would say, there are a lot of passes. The passes in the Northwest mountains, such as Khyber Pass, the Bolan, the Khurram, the Gomal. What do, these passes? They provide easy access to India. If these passes were not there, I'm not sure how would the Indo-Aryans to Indo-Greeks to Parthians to Sakas to Kushanas to Hunas and Turks who we will read about in time to come, they would not have even considered India. It was because of these passes they found a route to India. So Malala Yousafzai, do you all know her? So Malala Yousafzai and Alexander of Macedonia, they had one thing in common. They both had connections to Swat Valley in Pakistan. It was a Swat Valley that Alexander travels through when he invaded India. Okay, so it's an example of another pass that I'm talking of. You're right that Himalayas will have a lot of impact to the Indian climate, and climate further have a few consequences going further. But the point about passes, you need to understand about Himalayas. There are so many passes there. And all the invaders use those specific passes that I mentioned. Do not worry about writing down these points. Do not fret, because all of this would be there in your post-read. The goal is simple. We need to fall in love with learning. We need to learn how to ask questions and how to address those questions. Do not worry about taking notes in level 1. If you want to make notes, make notes. But if you're not able to make notes, do not worry about it. But just be diligent, because I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. So all of you unraise your hand so that I can also see if you have any further questions here. Sagar, Ashfaq, yeah. Now, anyone who has any question, you folks raise your hand. Pratham, go on.
Yeah, so my question was like, there hasn't been any invasion through Himalayas, right? Like there's not a big space for huge armies to come through. Traders and small caravans, they have arrived.
Yeah.
But Himalayas can actually be said, right, that it has protected India.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I'm again saying that they have protected India in many ways, but they also had passes that gave chances for invaders to come in.
But we can
if these passes were not here, those folks would not have never discovered India. They would have never traded with India.
Like trade routes were there through that. But Himalayas can only be considered as a shield. But why not we can't like talk about Himalayas as a place where all the rivers originate? Like
yes, we talk about and then we go to the second phase of India's geography. What is that? Indo-Gangetic Plains. Why is it called Indo-Gangetic Plains?
I don't know about like Indo-Gangetic. I only know.
Look at the name Indus and Ganga, the two behemoths of rivers, make up this entire plain. Where does Indus originate from?
Himalayas.
Yeah. So Himalayas is coming into picture. You had the doubts just getting addressed on its own.
Yeah.
Gangadhar, what are your thoughts?
Hello, Naman.
Yeah.
Naman, my answer for the question, how history is linked with geography, right? So you asked us how I would approach in many exams. So what I would do is I would structure the answer into. I mean, I would do a pistol analysis.
We're not writing answers right now. That stage will come in the second phase when we begin in the month of June, perhaps. So don't worry about that. But I just want you to start thinking along those lines. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just ask a different question. How did Indo-Gangetic Plains shape India's history?
Yeah, like along the lines of the along the banks of the Indo-Gangetic Plains, so the soil were fertile. So you had a large amount of silt. So people started to settle there. So most of the population right now in UP is there because the soil was fertile for cultivation and farming. So due to that, many people start to settle down and this cultivation and population increased. So I think, and that is one of the reasons that was one of the reasons. Maybe you can add up on it. So yeah, that is one of the things that I could think. Right
Okay,
now.
fair enough. Good point. Satyam, what are your thoughts?
Hi. Actually, when Himalayas were found, so when in India side there was a syncline. So when rivers were coming from Himalayas, they were bringing a lot of soil which was very fertile, and every year it's replenished. So Indo-Gangetic plain were filled by these soils.
Got it. Great point. I think many of you have addressed this answer already. To all those who have no idea about what are Indo-Gangetic plains, is anyone who has no idea about it? Be brutally honest. No dumb question, and there is no shamefulness in asking those questions. Okay, I mean, it's for the first time that you're hearing the word Indo-Gangetic plains. Vinay, is that the case with you?
Yes, that's the case with me.
So when you think of Indian geography, what do you think of?
When I think of Indian geography, first thing comes to my mind is southern coastline, east coast and west coast.
Hold on. So what I'll do is I think I'll get you a map right now. Just give me a minute, and then I'll try to explain things from the very basics. Can you all see the map? Okay. So we have this beautiful part of India. By the way, here are the passes that I briefly spoke of. Can anyone tell me, all the geographers, where is the part of the Indo-Gangetic plains? Just a second. Okay, so when I want you to think of India's geography, think from three angles. You have the Himalayas, you have the Indo-Gangetic plains, and then you have something called the southern part of India. Okay, very simple. We'll delve deeper into it once we begin with our geography. But for now, I want you to think along these three lines. Now, one unique thing about Indo-Gangetic plains is that, and I think someone rightfully mentioned, was that it's irrigated by a lot of rivers. What are those rivers? If you know nothing about Indo-Gangetic plains, you should understand that rivers play a very important role here. The entire plains is named after rivers. There are three rivers. What are those three rivers? Right now?
Ganga, Yamuna, and
it's called Indo-Gangetic plains. I'm giving you certain hints.
Indus.
I would say, so usually it's mentioned Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra.
Okay.
Which one is the largest river amongst the three?
It could be Ganga.
Are you sure?
No, it's guess.
Just give me a second. I'll just debate with you for some time. I think from the next class onwards, I'll fix my iPad so that we constantly look into the map as we traverse through history. But for now, I want you to ask a few questions. Which one do you think is the largest river amongst the three? Manish? I think you're on mute. Okay, let me connect with Twinkle. Of the three rivers, which one is the largest?
But in
Sorry, longest.
In India, Ganga is the longest river. But if we look at the length
I'm not
of the whole,
amongst the three rivers. I'm not saying India. Amongst the three rivers.
I think it's Indus because it also goes into modern day Pakistan and a lot of settlements there, as far as I know. And then since I think India also has a dam or a water project where they can probably control the amount of water that we leave for Pakistan or that we direct towards Pakistan. So that is also a geopolitical issue that comes up. I just remember this from vague news articles that I read ages ago. This is what I know.
Okay. And which one is the second? If you were to arrange them in ascending, descending order, for the longest river amongst these three, Indus, Brahmaputra, and Ganga.
Indus, Brahmaputra, and then Ganga. Because Brahmaputra goes into...
But if you were to ask about India, things will change. Yeah. Which one is the longest river in the world?
Nile.
Which one is the second longest?
I don't know that.
Amazon. Forget about it. I think these are basic, these are some facts that you will come across as we move ahead in the journey. But the point that I would want to highlight here is that the most prominent feature of the Indo-Gangetic Plains is that it's irrigated by three most important rivers: Ganga, Indus, and Brahmaputra. And it is important because the alluvial soil gets formed. It's very fertile. And when you have such fertile soil, what will happen? You will see a rise of urban centers. The Harappan culture flourished in the Indus Valley. The Vedic culture prospered in the Western Gangetic Plains. Banaras, Allahabad, Agra, Delhi, Patliputra are some of the most important cities in the Gangetic Plains. Can anyone tell me the significance of Patliputra? Why is it so important in history? Modern day Patna, by the way. Varsha, what are your thoughts? And I repeat, no answer is wrong. Okay. I'm going with the assumption that no one knows anything.
Though I don't have that much knowledge, but I'm trying to conclude is that the Patliputra rose to prominence maybe because I'm connecting what we have spoke, the Gangetic Plains, maybe of the plains being very fertile, making it resource rich. And so the reason the empires would have
exactly. And if you were to give examples of those empires, the Mauryas, Shungas, Guptas, all of those had capitals in Patliputra, right? The heart of the Indo-Gangetic Plains. So Indo-Gangetic Plains, some way or the other, seems to be again impacting history, right? So we saw Himalayas, we looked at the Indo-Gangetic Plains, but in Indo-Gangetic Plains, there's something called Dwab. What is a Dwab? Ganga, Yamuna, Dwab. Can anyone tell me what is a Dwab? Ashfaq, what are your thoughts?
Doab is a region between two rivers, which makes it fertile, and a lot of wars actually happen for that region, so that the kings can.
But why so many wars happened? I mean, you are right, Ashfaq. Battle of Kurukshetra, Battle of Tarain, Battle of Panipat, that we will read through again in some time. They were all fought between the Ganga, Yamuna, Dwab.
Mainly because of the water resources, so that
because
they
of
can
how
have
fertile the
advantage.
land was, because of the irrigation of so many rivers, like we just mentioned. It was a source of temptation and attraction for foreign invaders, for the wealth that they could make.
Yes.
Especially the Ganga Yamuna Dwab, that was very, very coveted and contested in the entire history. And another point that I would want to highlight here about the Indo-Gangetic Plains is that in the olden age, we did not have good roads the way we have today, right? So in a way, rivers also double up as arteries of commerce. Today, India is focusing a lot on developing waterways because waterways makes a lot of logical sense, not just economic sense or ecological sense. But even in ancient age, those waterways were of relevance, was of extreme relevance. Why is Punjab called as Punjab? Yash?
Sure. Again, how we derived from Doab, it's the meeting point of two rivers. Punjab is a state which has historical significance
five
for the
rivers.
fact that five.
Punjab is a land of 5 rivers. That's the literal meaning. And every Pakistani politician is some way or the other. Punjab is not just in India. A large part of it went to Pakistan. And every Pakistani politician will somehow be connected to Punjab. Why? Because it was the most prosperous region in Pakistan. In fact, when the War of Liberation was fought, there was clear-cut differences between the folks who ruled over Punjab versus the folks who were from East Pakistan. Because folks from Punjab were very wealthy. And because of wealth and prosperity, they were ruling politically. That's how it usually happens. Once you acquire economic wealth and then you acquire political wealth. Or the vice versa. That also happens quite often. Okay, so history is definitely linked to geography. Goes without saying. We saw Himalayas, we saw the Indo-Gangetic Plains. Now let's move towards the Southern Peninsula. Before that, Gangadhar has a question. And then we talk to Sagar.
Thank you, Naman. So just wanted to check with you. You told something about drop. I don't understand the literal meaning. Can you translate to English? And another question was, what's the difference between drop and Prayag? Prayag is also meeting of two rivers, right?
No, Prayag is not, I think. Doab, see, the Doab is also mentioned in your NCRTs. Okay. And we will use the term Doab when we're writing answers about why certain battles were fought in certain geographies. I think this was a question that was asked in 2013 mains. And in some way or the other was reflected in many other mains. But to answer your question about Doab, the literal meaning is definitely, it's the land between two rivers. So Ganga and Yamuna, they run parallel to each other. There comes a time when they're running parallel to each other. So the land between those two rivers will be Ganga, Yamuna, Doab. When you talk about Satavahanas in the, as we move ahead in the journey, we will also realize that they also ruled over a very important Doab. Before we talk about the Southern Peninsula, I would want you to think about it. Raichur Doab was the name. And UPSC has asked a question in prelims, by the way, about the Raichur Doab. What two rivers? In what two rivers the Doab is situated? Okay. Sagar, what's your question?
Thank you. Yeah. So I wanted to mention that there's a Doab between Krishna and Tungabhadra, and which used to be a bone of contention between the Vijayanagar Empire.
And that is extremely important. I think Satavahanas ruled from there.
Yeah, and this particular Doab, I think, has a lot of diamond occurrence. So apart from it being fertile, these empires were fighting among themselves to get the resources of diamonds.
Absolutely, makes a lot of sense. Maitri, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hello, sir. I just wanted to add, which one of my fellow aspirants has asked regarding Doab and Prayag. As you rightly said, Doab is a region that it's a land between two rivers, but Prayag is where a river channel is connected to another river. Previously, our current government has named Allahabad as Prayagraj, which is a meeting point of, I don't know which river, but Ganga, and another river meets to Ganga. So it is called as Prayag. And there are a lot of Prayags in, I guess, in Himachal and Uttarakhand. This Dev Prayag, Karna Prayag, something like that. So the meeting point of two rivers is Prayag, but the region, the land between two rivers is Doab, as long as I can recollect.
Fantastic. Do not worry about Prayag for now, but let's worry about Doab. Is there anyone who has any question about Doab? Anugraha, what are your questions or thoughts?
So can you hear me?
Yeah.
So actually, I had a question about, like you asked what are the, like out of the three, which is the largest river? So I wanted to know the answer. Like which one is
the longest rivers?
river?
I mean, I did not prefix it as India. So the longest rivers amongst the three would be Indus, followed by Brahmaputra, followed by Ganga. But if I prefix it as India, which one, because Brahmaputra also flows through Bangladesh, Indus flows through China and Pakistan, that thing will change. So you will have to figure out which one is the longest amongst those domains. But if the question is which one of the is the longest one, then definitely it's going to be Indus. In the world, it's going to be Nile, followed by Amazon. Okay. These are factual questions. Do not worry about these questions. We're not here to learn facts. Those learning of facts will happen once you're solving those prelims paper. However, it will get very easy if you're connecting stories in history. If you can be a little more curious from next class onwards, or after this class, my job is attained. There is going to be no spoon feeding. Twinkle, what are your thoughts?
So I wanted to ask if you could provide another example of a Doab, probably in the western region, because right now we talked about Indo-Gangetic Plain. So those are probably, those are in the north. So any example of Doabs in the west that we have that are of significance?
Yeah, we can think of it. As of now, I don't have the answer in the back of my mind, but I like the answer that one of the fellow gave about the region between Krishna River and Tungabhadra River. And it is called as Raichur Doab. And it is famous for Satavahanas. They built an enormous empire there.
Thank
and
you
it's very fertile. And that is why it's very contested, right? Great. Shivendra, what's your question?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, can you please tell how the fertile lands of the Doab are benefiting the rulers who are controlling it? Like in the economic, what economic benefits are these Doabs ensuring to the person who are controlling?
I think from first principles, what do you think?
One could be that these were very fertile land, so it would be very
fertile
great
soil,
for
then agriculture was going to flourish.
agriculture.
And we had agrarian economy
exactly.
all throughout the ages.
And
That's one.
Revenue could be added source, which would benefit the person who would control the Doab. That's what.
The one thing about agriculture is it leads to a sedentary lifestyle. So we will realize this, that once we begin with agriculture, after the hunter-gatherer phenomena, agriculture will provide us with very sedentary lifestyle. We'll sit through, we'll have a lot of time. We will create pots and pottery and save all the grains. And this free time will also give us time to innovate things. We might create new kinds of weapons. We might invest in technologies, innovations. And economics will talk about it. But for now, I think I'm happy that you are also thinking across various domains and also giving your own answers to the questions that you're posing. Gurpreet, what are your thoughts? And then we move ahead because I need to cover a few other concepts today.
Yeah, it's just a small doubt that I have, and you were talking of Patliputra. I mean, obviously we have not reached there, but then there's this question popped up in my mind. You were talking of Patliputra being a very important area where we all the Vedic
We have
period
not
was
even
based
begin
on
with
the...
history. History begins with prehistory. We'll move
Right,
towards
I
it in
get
some
it.
time.
Right, you just
Yeah.
you spoke about things, so that question popped
So
up in my
just
mind.
so that, I want to make this very clear because there are many youngsters who have no idea about history or geography or polity. And if you're getting
All right.
bogged down by the thought that there are many fellows who know so much about other things, do not worry, do not fret. Just stay patient. In time to come, all of these things will be at your beck and call.
Right.
Okay? So do not worry if you're not able to grasp some of these concepts. Watch through the recordings if needed. And definitely do the post read after this. But do not worry if you are missing out on some factual knowledge, because the goal is never to attain factual knowledge.
It was not related to the
Yeah, go
factual
on with your
aspect of
question.
it, but it was something. It's on a different angle actually. So my question is this: that as you were talking of the Vedic period being set up in on those lines or on these areas of Patliputra and all those places, whereas Indus Valley Indus Valley started with in the Indus and all in the northwestern part. So what do you think could be the reason of Vedic period being shifted to the Gangetic portion, whereas when the civilization, let's say, actually started, the first civilization that started on those the Indus area where you have more rivers, you have a longer river, and why would the civilization think of shifting to let's say to the Gangetic plain?
Okay, great question. 2 points. Number one, climate change is not a new phenomenon. It had happened in the past. And number two, we will talk about this as we move towards it. Begin with Harappan civilization. Why certain cities flourished in Harappan age? How does the mature Harappan look like? And why did it kept on transgression to other geographical terrains? Okay, so you will have all the answers in a story format, but just stay patient and just enjoy the journey up until here. Great question, by the way. Okay, now I have a question for you all. You've all asked me quite a few questions. Now let me give you a question at my end. Can anyone tell me why there are so many beautiful rock-cut temples and monasteries in Deccan, India? What could be the reason? You have Ajanta caves, Ellora caves, you have Kailash temple, all of those in that region. Sagar?
Yeah, I think it comes to the part of geology. The Deccan part is one of the oldest formed areas in the Indian subcontinent. And So yeah, so in Deccan area, you have these old stone formations which are quite stable, unlike Himalayas and all that. So you can, it's possible to do rock cut architecture, and these stones are all exposed over the years. They're just exposed out in the open. In fact, maybe the city of Vijayanagar, Hampi, and all were built on one of these exposed rock formations.
Okay. You're spot on. See, the thing is, I'll tell you one thing. Political science and international relations, that was my strength, the PSIR. However, when I gave my mains examination, I scored really bad marks in the paper too, polity, because I wrote answers like an expert. The person who's going to check your copies is not going to be an expert for the GS paper. It's going to be a generalist. So you need to make things very clear for them. So if you're able to explain the reason and the rationale to the entire class present here, you're winning the game. So let's try this again. Twinkle, but great attempt, Sagar. I think it felt as if you knew the answer, but for some reason, at least I could not comprehend many aspects of it. Twinkle, what are your thoughts?
So in Western India, we see a lot of temples because I would like to link this with history because the Deccan Plateau or the whole Maratha Empire that used to be in the Southern Peninsula, they were able to protect their regions from Mughal invasion. So that is why till date, we do
take a hint from Sagar. I think Sagar was absolutely right. He gave you certain hints. Just try to build onto it.
About the geography, so I'm trying to take maybe a religion take on this. Because in the north, there was Mughal invasion, and with them, they got their culture, their religion. And I do not know the correct sources, but many do claim that, many Hindu temples were probably demolished, which happens with any culture, any invasion. Any person who invades is going to bring their culture, want to make their mark. So probably up in the north, all of those temples or the architecture, Hindu architecture that we talk about was kind of lost. As we say, history is written by victors. So they wrote their own history by leaving their mark, their culture. So that is why we probably don't see much of it in the north. And that is, and since, the south was kind of protected by their rulers, we do see a prevalence of the Hindu architecture talked about.
Great. Now, all of you unraise your hands and let's delve deeper into this aspect. Okay. Now, one request. You all have access to internet. From the next class onwards, I will be using my iPad to showcase all the maps. But for this class, just open a new tab and look for a map of Vindhya and Satpura mountains. Where are these mountains situated in India? You can use your Oxford or Orient Black Swan Atlas. And if you don't have access to Atlas, you can also open a new tab and see. Okay. Is it all open? I'll give you 30 more seconds. Just open that map where you can see Satpura and Vindhya mountains. I'll also take a few minutes to get my atlas. Okay, all sorted. Everyone has access to that map, so you can at least see and figure out where is Vindhyas and where is Satpura. Great. Manish, do you have a question? I've asked you to unmute yourself. You will have to do that so that I can hear you. Manish Singh, do you have a question?
Sir, actually, can you mute everyone? Then voices not come to me, sir. Actually, I don't know what's happening in my device.
I did not understand. Can you repeat?
Sir, actually, you mute everyone, then your voices not come to me.
Is my voice audible to everyone?
Yes, sir. Now your voice is audible.
Okay, so you will have to figure out things at your end. I can't solve for that. So there should be some options on Zoom that you can navigate. It will take some time, but you will have to solve things at your end. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Thank you for pointing it out. Okay, so if you see the map, what are the two most prominent things that you see? Forget about two, the most prominent thing that you see. For me, Southern Peninsula starts with Vindhyas and Satpura mountains. These are very important mountains. Do not worry about, the length, the breadth, the extent of it. Do not worry about what states does it cover, but just look at the map and tell me, what do you think? The most important observation. It's an open book exam for now. Niharika, what are your thoughts? Niharika Rao.
Yes, sir. It is acting like a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
there's a river flowing between the ranges.
I love that point. There are rivers flowing. What rivers are flowing there?
There is Narmada, Tapi.
Narmada and Tapi. Fantastic. And why are they important?
They're providing for the irrigation, as well as they're making it difficult to travel the region. I mean, when we crossing the mountains, again a river and again a mountain.
And so, huge round of applause for Niharika. I think she is absolutely spot on that Narmada and Tapi are two very prominent rivers here. You should also remember which one comes, in terms of the hierarchy. I think Vindhya is the upper part. Satpura comes below that. UPSC is notorious. They can ask you such questions to ascending, to descending, and all the nonsense that goes along with it. But two rivers are very important. The plateau, because they are in some way or the other, the great dividing line between the northern and southern India. The plateau to the south of the Vindhya Mountains is known as Deccan Plateau. Okay, can you all see Deccan Plateau? Or have basic understanding, where this is the part where I can see Deccan Plateau. What is it famous for? If you were to remember one thing about Deccan Plateau, you should realize and remember that it consists of volcanic rocks. And because it consists of volcanic rocks, they're very easy to cut into. And therefore, we have a lot of rock cut monasteries and temples in the Deccan. When we move towards the modern history, we will realize how Shivaji used the Deccan traps that were formed to play hide and seek with the Aurangzeb's forces and to wage those guerrilla warfare. If you look closely in the map, are you all seeing the map? You will realize that Deccan Plateau is then flanked by Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. Is there anyone who cannot say that? Be brutally honest. We're there to help you. And Avdut, Anjali, Ruby, it's extremely important that you all have your videos on. Twinkle, Aman, Jason, Jennifer. Because we're going to have a dialogue. You're here, you're spending your time, you're spending your emotions. Make sure that you all go through the entire learning experience. Okay, I want all of you to crack the exam. Now the question is, there's a beautiful coast that comes between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal. What is it called? Ikshu?
The Coromandel.
Coromandel Coast, yes. UPSC can ask these questions. And therefore, because we are looking at the map, I just want you to, remember these basic things. So we see Eastern Ghats, we see Bay of Bengal, and we see a coast between the two called the Coromandel Coast. The way I remember, I termed it as ECB, the English Cricket Board. Eastern Ghats, Coromandel Coast, and Bay of Bengal. Western Ghats, go over to Western Ghats. What coast do you see over there? You see Konkan Coast. You see Kannara Coast, and you see Malabar Coast, north to south. The way I remember, it's, there's a famous actor called K.K. Menon. So I just KKM, K for Konkan, K for Kannara, and M for Malabar, north to south. Okay, in the western part. This is just factual knowledge. Do not fret. You all will remember. Another question that can be asked in the UPSC exam is, what all states do Vindhyan ranges cover? Or what all states would the Satpura ranges cover? The UPSC is again notorious. They will give you some options of states. They will put in Bihar, for example, or Rajasthan, for example. Option 1, 2, 3, 4. So for Vindhya, can anyone tell me, Gayatri, what all states does it cover? Take a guess. I mean, do not look at the map now. Just basis your experience. Let's assume that you stumble upon this question in the UPSC paper and you have to make a guess.
Madhya Pradesh.
For obvious reasons, because it's a central part of India. Or else?
Maharashtra, Gujarat, that region.
See, usually when you say of MP, also include Chhattisgarh into it. Because until 2001, both were the same states. Okay, so for both, so for Vindhya, you will have Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, these two states. What else? There are 5 states, by the way. So these are the 2 states. Any guess? UP is such a big state, it passes through everywhere. That's the 3rd state. Gujarat is very close. And then there is Bihar, which is very unique for Vindhya Mountains. Many will confuse with Maharashtra. UPS will put Maharashtra into the options. Do not get confused. 5 states it passes through. Okay. Can you think of Satpura? What all states? Here Maharashtra comes in. There is no Bihar. Maharashtra and Gujarat, yes. So MP, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra and Gujarat, Satpura. So Deccan Plateau, it acted as a bridge between North and South India. Why is the culture of South India so different from the North? The answer is that the Vindhyan mountains make this region very isolated. The language, the culture in Southern Peninsula are preserved intact for a long time due to this geographical isolation. There can be many answers to it, but geographical isolation is one of the main answers. Now, can anyone tell me, looking at the map, why Eastern Ghats are not very high and they have a lot of openings if you were to compare with the Western Ghats? Shivendra?
So it's because a lot of rivers drain towards the Bay of Bengal, which like cuts through the Eastern Ghats. It drains from the Western Ghats through the Eastern Ghats, like Narmada, like Godavari, Krishna. These go through Eastern Ghats and cuts through it.
So Vivek,
that's why we.
So Vivek Alpha, if I were to ask you a question, which ones are the east flowing rivers and which one is the west flowing river? So if you look at Narmada and Tapi, are these east flowing rivers or west flowing rivers? And this is why I say, it's extremely critical that you have your videos on, because you will internalize things better. And along the journey, when you realize that the entire UPSC game is not very difficult. If you're just diligent for the 2 hours that you come in, and for 2 hours when you read things. Muskan, what are your thoughts? Why Eastern Ghats have so many, it's not as high as the Western Ghats. And they also have a lot of openings.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the question you asked was in relation to why Eastern Ghats are at a lower elevation?
Yeah.
Or was it the rivers flowing question?
Both are interlinked. The answer, some way or the other, links with the rivers. But if you were to give an answer, if you were asked a question, that Muskan, can you tell me why Eastern Ghats are not very high in comparison to Western Ghats? And why do they have so many openings? What would be your answer?
So I think it was mentioned before, but the reason that I would allocate to this question is the dissection between the Eastern Ghats because of the river and the Bay of Bengal as well. That's why it's at a lower elevation. And most of the rivers are eastern flowing, right?
Yeah, except Narmada and Tapti, all the rivers are west to east. Godavari, Krishna, Tungabhadra, and Kaveri, they all flow from west to east. And because of this reason, the entire region is very fertile. There are so many rivers flowing in that region.
So may I take on?
Yeah, go on.
Sir, I think that the tectonic plate movement is the cause because of this, because the India landmass has been separated from the African continent way before. So if you break the two, then Western Ghats become the point of conjunction between the two. So Eastern Ghats will be the downslope of that tectonic plate, and that's why they have the inbuilt downslope towards Eastern Ghat, and Western Ghat is at the upslope.
Yeah, that's another answer. But and one beautiful thing about such answers and such questions is the tectonic plates can address almost all the questions in paper 1. So, but what I want you to remember with this discussion is the east flowing nature and the west flowing nature of rivers. Because whether you like it or not, UPSC will drill you in this aspect in prelims paper. Not in the mains, but in prelims. They'll give you a list of few rivers and they will ask you which one is east flowing, which one is west flowing. They're just 2 rivers, you know. There could be few from Goa, I think Mahe and one more. Except those, almost all the rivers are east flowing. But fair enough. And look at the Kaveri Delta. Can you look at the Kaveri Delta? Is it visible to some extent in your maps? If not, then you can also Google that. What is it famous for? It was a seat of Chola power. It's a very, very, very good delta of India. So one peculiar thing about southern part of India is it's a very long coastline. And because of this long coastline, they definitely took a lot of interest in maritime activities. A great deal of trade and commerce went through the seaways to as far as countries like Indonesia, Java, Sumatra, Burma. India is such a beautiful melting pot of so many cultures, customs, cuisines, caste, creed, and we somehow figure out ways to form consensus democratically. In time to come, in fact, tomorrow perhaps, or perhaps day after tomorrow, we will see how ancient India saw the birth of various religions, the Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism. We'll also see how Aryans to Indo-Aryans to Greeks to Scythians to Hunas to Turks, they all made India their home. India was united. You know, can anyone tell me the story of Bharat, why India is called as Bharat? The Article 1, the modern constitution makers have beautifully said this. The Article 1 clearly states that India, that is Bharat, is the union of states. When we discuss polity, we will see why it's called union, not federation. But why India is also called as Bharat.
Sir, in our mythologies, Bharata is mentioned, and it was supposed to be the entire field where the Mahabharata took place. So it was the entire region of Indian subcontinent.
Yeah, I think in the post-read, you will also realize that, you know, you're right, you're spot on. So Bharata was one of the ancient tribes, and India definitely attained a political unity much wider and farther than they achieved during the mighty British Empire. The river Sindhu or Indus will now become important in the next chapter of India's history. So what my goal up until now, in past 1 hour, was simple, to just introduce you to some facets of India's geography. Even if you have no idea about geography, never studied geography, you can then dissect India into 3 spheres. The first is the Himalayas, second is Indo-Gangetic, and third is Southern Peninsula. If you can do this, you can then delve into micro details and granularities to figure out why certain things happened over there, why so many battles were fought in Tarain, why Patliputra became important, why there are so many rock-cut monasteries and caves in the southern part of India, why Deccans is important, why Himalayas have so many passes, what are those passes, why certain rivers flow in whatever directions. We will cover many aspects in geography, but for now, just have this picture of India in mind as we move on to the next chapter and phase of Indian history. Because many foreigners will pronounce Indus as Sindhu, Sindhu Nadi, which will later on become as Hindu in no time, and in no time becomes India. Any questions up until here on any facet? Because now we will begin with history of India. Yash.
Sir, I could not understand why it matters to us, why some rivers flow to the east and some to the west. Why does it matter to India that, and why does it matter to UPSC that some of them flow?
Say many questions that UPSC will ask are pure ludicrous, but sadly you have to learn those things. Okay, UPSC will grill you I don't know why, but they will do it. But what I think is because certain rivers flow in certain directions, it also makes certain areas very fertile. The Kaveri Delta, right? Very fertile. And because of this, the fertility, you also see the rise of certain powers. You see why the Raichur Dwa becomes so important for Satavahanas, why it was a bone of contention for so many Deccan powers. Just because the way rivers were flowing. Anything else, Yash?
No, sir. That's all.
Okay. Any other question, any other thoughts before we begin with the history of India? Gangadhar.
Hello, sir. So I just wanted to
And I
know
hope
if,
all of you are taking notes, because after this class, I'll be asking you your 5 key summaries. Okay. Gangadhar, go on.
Sir, if all the rivers are flowing from west to east, I'm assuming whether is the slope slanting from the
Again,
west
never
to
use
east?
absolutist terms ever again in this class and in UPSC mains answers or in the interviews. Not all rivers flow from west to east. There is Narmada, there is Tapi. That does not do that.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, if most of the rivers flowing from, I mean, like from west to east, how come only 2 rivers are flowing in the opposite direction? Like, what's the logic behind it? How is it? Is it because of the plant or how is it?
Can anyone give an answer to this? Great question. We will delve deeper into this aspect in geography. And the answer will definitely lie with which what Vivek gave an example of. Maitri?
So I think the Narmada and Tapi lie between two Vindhyas and Satpura. So I think between the fault plane of these two mountains, the river actually flows, and the Deccan Plateau actually starts below the Vindhya and Satpura. So the slope is Deccan slope. Deccan Plateau ka slope is below these two mountains, I guess.
Do not worry, Gangadhar, or anyone else for now. The goal is to start with history. We will cover geography in the next module, and perhaps we'll discuss these questions in length, proper understanding. But Maitri is not wrong. She's correct to some extent. So Damini, what are your thoughts?
Right. Just a thought, does it have anything to do with the curvature of the earth as to how the peninsula is positioned?
You know, in econometrics, we will not study, but usually you study how to figure out correlations, causations. Okay. And we can prove via various, methodologies why certain things are correlated. So there is no, I cannot say this with absolute certainty that curvature has no role to play, but it may not have an absolutist role to play. So there will be certain things that are extremely critical of why that answer should be that answer. But for now, I cannot say this with utmost confidence that curvature has any role to play. It may have some role to play, but not how much. Okay, so let's begin with history of India. So Adarsh, let me ask you a question since you raised the hand. Can you raise it back? Yeah. So Adarsh, it's usually said to understand the history of India, it is also important that you understand the prehistory of India. So what is history and what is prehistory?
I think prehistory is the the age before. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the age before Homo sapiens were evolved, the Paleolithic period, and all that.
So if this question is asked to you in the interview, is this how you will say?
No.
And it's a very basic question. You've studied so much of history. I'm just asking you a question. How is history different from prehistory? Satyam?
I think history is from where we have facts and we can express our views on based of those facts. But in prehistory, we don't have all those facts in a particular manner or in that complete time frame. We have, let's say, for example, we have time period facts related for almost 1 or 2 years. Then there is a huge gap between the other facts, I think.
Okay, so if it was an question for 10 marks, I'll give you 2 marks. You were not wrong, but you were not entirely correct. Yogita, one last try, and then we take this further.
Yeah, I think history is for like we have written records for history. For
Yeah.
prehistory, we don't have written records.
Beautiful. And I think it's often said that history is written by the winners. Can we say the same for prehistory? Can prehistory be written by winners? No, because for history to exist, you need written records. But for prehistory, you don't need to have those written records. Because prehistory are the events that occurred before the existence of written records. Any question as of now? Between prehistory and history? History is easy. You read books, you form opinions. For history, it is simple. You read what the authors wrote, the Megasthenes, to Marco Polo, to Amir Khusro, to Ankur Warikoo. They all must have written some books, right? In the history. You can read through those histories, you may agree or you may disagree, but you can form your opinions. But for prehistory, you have no written records. But the question again is, how will you form conjectures or conclusions for prehistory? There are no written records. But if you were to know about what happened in the prehistoric age, what will be your source? Naman Mishra, what are your thoughts?
Archaeological. Actually, I had a question on that definition of history. Do they need to be written or other evidences also satisfy, like cave paintings and all of that?
I would want you to answer this. Think about it, basis the definition, and then address.
I think the cave paintings also satisfy the definition of history because they give some kind of evidence too.
Avadut, what do you think? I think the book that you will read, the book may not agree. Okay, and I will be going through the book. There can be so many sources on the internet, but I'm relying on Tamil Nadu's book. So they may not agree. The written record could be undecipherable. That is, it will still form a part of history. But cave paintings, if there are certain scripts that are written in the cave painting, then it may make sense. It can be part of history.
Okay.
But the question is, how do you construct prehistory? That's the question. Aditya?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Sir, I would say that how archaeologists do it is that by digging the specific area where they think that they could find something related to history, and they find sculptures or artifacts, and then they use the carbon dating method to establish a proper theory related to.
Makes sense. You got into the nitty-gritties of things, and therefore archaeology becomes extremely important. If you want to understand the life and culture of the period, who lived in that period. Okay, fair enough. So now what we usually do, and I think this will differ books from books, but what Tamil Nadu book has done is, it has divided the entire prehistory into 4 phases. The first one is the Paleolithic age, the Old Stone Age. So all of you unraise your hands, and I would need 4 volunteers now. Okay, so 4 people who raise their hands first, they are the volunteers. So I can say 3 for now. Yeah, so let's see, we'll have Ronica, we'll have Gurpreet. We can have, does anyone haven't heard from? Almost everyone has spoken to some extent. Shivendra and Ashfaq. All of you unraise your hands, except these 4 people. Now what we'll do is, we'll look at these 4 people and they will play a part in the role of history. So Gurpreet is going to be someone from the Old Stone Age. Okay. The Paleolithic Age. Shivendra would be from Mesolithic Age, the Middle Stone Age. Ronica will be from Neolithic Age, the New Stone Age. And Ashfaq will be from the Metal Age. These are 4 segments that we need to remember about prehistory. The Paleolithic, that's the Old Stone Age. Shivendra would be the Middle Stone Age. Ronica would be the New Stone Age. Anything that is new written in front of it, it's new. So Neolithic, the New Stone Age. And then Ashfaq will be the Metal Age. Now let's talk to Gurpreet. What features do you think you will have as an early man in the Old Stone Age? The most prominent one. You don't have to learn things, just think from the first principles. Just a second.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now.
So yeah, that would have been a really tough time to live, right? But nevertheless, the human race has survived that time, and we have been pretty fine, fit, and strong till the modern day. So thanks to my generation, they fought back. They hunted animals. Like we hunted animals, we protected our tribe, and we fought as if there's no tomorrow to protect
Yeah.
the weak.
I like
on
the
our
words
side.
that he's using. He's using the word tribe. He's using something, along the lines of nomadic life. Okay, what else? The 2 adjectives I'll go with. One is nomadic life. Second is tribe. What else?
And probably trying to make a few tools so that because that's a
Tools.
problem at
interesting.
hand. There's a problem at hand that hunting animals with stones which are blunt is not a very nice idea to do. So we need
Why
to
do you think,
figure out
why do you think, blunt stones would be much better than the stones that are not that very sharp? Because with sharp stones, you can definitely kill the animals. That may not be the case with large stones that are not very sharp.
I mean, yeah, that's why we are like trying to sharpen the, figuring
We'll
out
try.
a way to, get this problem solved.
Okay, where are the 4 volunteers? I can see 3 right now. The 4th one has dropped off. Okay, Shivendra. Okay, so great attempt. So all of these ages will have certain features. From Ronica to Gurpreet to Ashfaq to Shivendra, all will have certain features. Let's start with Gurpreet for now. So life will be definitely very nomadic. Food will be obtained by hunting and gathering. These are called as hunter-gatherers for a reason. They're hunting for animals and they're gathering the edible plants. And to hunt, what do you need? You need tools. And for Stone Age, what would those tools made of? Shape of a stone. But you can't kill an animal with a stone. You can't alone do it. You need a tribe to do it. You need a community to do it. And therefore, you will combine a group of a lot of people. And this period was approximately, 10,000 BC. By the way, the books that you will read will have terminology called BC and AD. Today, we do not use that term because it's not secular. Okay, what is BC? What is AD? Or what used to be BC and AD? It's before Christ and after death. Today, it's been replaced by Common Era and before Common Era. So the books that you will read will have the term BC AD, but when you're writing in the exams, use a term called Common Era and before Common Era, BCE and CE. Okay, I can see other than Okay, Gurpreet. So Gurpreet, one more thing is, if you were to now make your life comfortable, how would you do it? Because humans have this tendency, they are always aspiring for comfort. They don't want to be crouching for food all the time. They don't want to be settled, they would want to be settled in one place. They would want to store food. They would want more time. They can't be spending all their life hunting and gathering. But now, as of now, you're in a quagmire of hunting and gathering. You're in the quagmire of living with a tribe. You have no privacy. You have stones. You are also always worrying about what will happen tomorrow. Will I get my food or not? How will the climate look like? Any thoughts? What would you do?
Yeah, so at the Stone Age, I'll have to, being a part of the Stone Age, I'll have to, basically figure out, how I can store food, and that would be done probably through the, discovery of fire.
Discovery of
And,
fire? Okay.
I mean, probably that's the only way out to, at least at that age and time to protect myself from, let's say, harsh winters, and to, preserve my food, probably by trying to figuring out
Okay,
how to smoke.
one fascinating thing about the entire, even about the prehistory is that if you were to go through the locations of all the prehistoric places, you would realize that all the locations are closer to water and river, the way we were speaking of in the beginning. Humans have this tendency to be closer to river and waters. So 6 sites of prehistory have been discovered: the Son Valley and the Potwar Plateau of the northwestern India. Son River flows through it. Number 2 would be Bhimbetka Caves in Madhya Pradesh. You have Betwa River in the region. Number 3 would be Shivalik Hills. Again, you have Ghaggar River and Saraswati River. You have Adamgarh in Narmada Valley, Narmada River, the one that's flowing from west to east or east to west? Gayatri, how does Narmada flows? West to east or east to west?
Towards east.
Are you sure?
Oh, sorry, west. From east to west, this side, towards Arabian Sea.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, so the point I'm trying, so there is Atirampakkam in Chennai. So there are 6 sites will be mentioned in your books, whatever you will read. You can be asked questions around it. Which one of this is in which part of the, is it a part of prehistory or not? Is it a part of the Paleolithic age or not? So you can be asked a question, okay? So, but the point is that all of these places are located near water that we spoke of. And the time is, 10,000 BCE, before the Common Era. Now let's move on to the Middle Stone Age. And like Gurpreet mentioned, we will move towards further refining our stone in this age. So who is our member from the Middle Stone Age? Shivendra? What is your age called? We began with Paleolithic Age. We move towards the Middle Stone Age or the Mesolithic Age. It's called Mesolithic Age. Can you tell me some features about this age? What could be the features? There will be some improvements.
Yes, sir. Maybe we could have improved our tools.
Exactly, and that the improvement of tools led to something called the microliths. So microliths came into existence in this age. One of the 2 unique things about this age was that we would find a different type of stone tool, a tiny artifacts called the microliths. We will also see, because these are small tools, we will also move towards hunting for small animals. Fishing also becomes prominent in this age. And secondly, you will also see a tendency to settle for longer durations. And when you intend to stay for longer durations, what happens? You look for belongingness. And how do you look for that belongingness? You will try to domesticate certain animals.
So
you will try to, property per se has not started yet, but yes, domestication of animals was seen. There were beginnings of horticulture, very primitive, but yes. But the question, Shivendra, is how did archaeologists make such conclusions that there were microliths, there was domestication of animals in your age?
So maybe through paintings,
Anything
they
else?
could
Paintings is one,
they
of
could
course.
and they could have found tools also. Matlab,
They looked at the burials, and what they realized is that they found the animal bones of deer, ostrich, dog, boar. UPSC even asked, were they able to find the horses? To which the answer is no. They were able to find deer, boar, ostrich, and dog. Those were the animals that were domesticated in your age. And what is it called? The Mesolithic age.
So Mesolithic age.
Yeah, so we began with which age? We began with the Paleolithic, moved towards Mesolithic, and now we move towards Ronica. What is your age, Ronica? One second. Yeah, go
So,
on.
in the Neolithic age, from the hunting and gathering economy, people started settling down. They started farming, and they started pottery weaving was there, and they started storing the food, gathering it in one place.
Exactly, there were remarkable progress in this age, the Neolithic age, the New Stone Age. Agriculture, full-blown domestication of animals. Now, what will happen? Once you start settling in, you will figure out that you have a lot of time. Now you will start using that time to further improve your tools. So first time you will see the polishing of stone tools.
Yes.
You will see that pottery is being developed. And when pottery is developed, you see also the emergence of village communities. You see settled life. You're no longer scrounging for food because now you have a lot of time. No, you are not, because you're not scrounging for food. Because of that, you have a lot of time. And you will start investing that time in much more productive activities. You improve tools, you polish them. You also start developing mud huts. There are evidences of mud huts. You would want to, because agriculture is there will be excess food. You would want to store that food. How would you do that? How would you do that, Ronica?
Oh,
Storing of food.
Use of salt was the people started using salt to store the food. Plus, there were granaries built.
Yeah.
Common granaries built, and
we haven't moved towards Harappan age as of now. I mean, there are bits and pieces of it that we will cover in some time. But yes, but again, at this age, you will not think of preserving of food. Spices will come in some time, not now. But we will talk about storing of grains. So granaries will be built to some extent. You will also see pottery. And because of pottery, you need wheels. And when you figure out wheels, you will also want to travel long distances. And travel began to some extent. And when you travel, you meet new people. You would want to look good. And therefore, you see first evidences of cotton and wool. Clothes made of cotton and wool. Okay, so these were the 3 ages. But then we come to the most important age called the Metal Age. And UPSC has asked a question in mains from this age. Why do I say it's the most important age, the Metal Age? Ashfaq?
Yes, sir. The Metal Age comes after the emergence of the iron. So before
no, let's start with, so it's also called as Chalcolithic age. Okay, first and foremost. So Chalcolithic age began after the Ronica's Neolithic age. So one unique thing about Chalcolithic age is the usage of bronze. Bronze can be widely used. Now, why is bronze important? Can anyone tell me why is bronze important? If anyone can, just raise your hand. Anugrah?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, it might have started to replace the stone tools. Stones started.
That's a very, very Viva-centric answer. You need to give me key points, because you can write a lot of fluff, you can speak a lot of fluff in the exams, but that will not convert into marks. You need to give me clear-cut data points, how bronze could be important. Maitri?
So correct me if I'm wrong. As per my knowledge, bronze is not found in its pure form. We have to make bronze from to another metal. So maybe the starting, or we might say that people have the knowledge of metals and how they are combined to form a new metal, something like that.
Now I'll tell you why this is important, that not many books will speak of. Will not come across this in Tamil Nadu book or NCERTs as well. Okay, it's of course that bronze as a material was strong, dense, corrosion resistant, and allowed civilizations to build stronger weapons. That's absolutely fine. You will find this everywhere. But when you make a bronze, just give me a second. Yeah, so when you make bronze, what do you need? You need to mix tin and arsenic with copper. And you could not find all these materials at the same place. And for that, what will you have to do? You will have to trade. And because of that, civilizations that traded flourished, because people acquired new skills, built new economies. Like I mentioned, Harappans, Mesopotamians, Egyptians, and Chinese, they traded. And when you trade enormously with the rest of the world, you acquire skills, such as even communicating effectively with the people from across the world. So the Harappan culture was a part of the Chalcolithic culture. Okay. Now just imagine if you, I think someone asked me in the last class, why are you beginning with ancient history and not modern history? Number one, because it's very difficult to teach ancient history. It's very exciting and interesting to teach modern history. So I thought, let's take the challenge and begin with ancient history. But just imagine if you can write an answer on globalization or speak of globalization by taking example of bronze as a material, the tin and arsenic, and the reason why you will have to trade. Even today, the countries that are trading are somehow the most powerful economies. I don't find North Korea in that list. It's excluded. Even China had to trade after their own opening up of the economy. Of course, trading can have downsides as well, because of because the entire supply chain gets interlinked. But trading has also created huge civilizations. So therefore, Bronze Age becomes extremely important. Any questions about it until now? I'll take all the questions in the end because there are just 4 minutes left. See, the Chalcolithic age will be followed by Iron Age, and we can talk in length about it. And tomorrow we will begin the next chapter in the story of India with the Bronze Age civilization, the Harappans. How was life in that age? And how did we make certain conclusions about that age? Okay. So up until now, any questions? Saurabh?
Yeah, hi Naman. I just had a doubt. When we say Chalcolithic age, is it just the copper that was found in Chalcolithic age, or is it the beginning of Bronze Age as well?
See, there are no clear-cut segmentations. There are overlaps. So you will figure out that certain components of Iron Age was prevalent in southern India. But from the UPSC standpoint, we will go on to say that the Copper Stone Age was a Chalcolithic age. And it was only in the Chalcolithic age, the bronze as a material came to be widely used. Because to make bronze, you need to mix tin and arsenic with copper. And only with the discovery of copper and, when folks realized copper, they mixed it with tin and arsenic and began the Bronze Age. And bronze made such powerful weapons.
Yeah, okay, got that.
Any other question? Now, before I do the summaries part, So whosoever is going to ask a question will tell me 5 things that they learned in today's class. I need to make one thing very clear. Next class onwards, we will be trying to do this via the online portal. It has come to my attention that not many of you have access to the portal. So what I'll do is I'll just share a link with everyone in the community. Save this link, okay, somewhere or the other. Just click on this link, put in your email address, whichever you have used to make the payment, and put in the password as a password. So for the first time, you will get the access. But once you get the access, change your password. Okay, so I'll just share a link with you. All of you should have access to it. If for some reason you still do not have access to it, wait for approximately 6 to 8 hours. You will be provided access. Things are pretty slow at the back end. But just save this link, okay? Your login will be your email address. Your password will be password. Let's talk to Nishita. Nishita, now tell me 5 things that you learned in today's class. Could be anything. Could be facts, could be logic, could be any other new observation.
Okay. Hello, sir. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello, sir. The first thing that I learned is that there should be no absolutist way, like while answering the questions and in general as well. Second is related to this, that you do not give a conclusion, like be open to experience and stuff. Third would be that don't have an expert's opinion towards things, but a more generalist opinion towards things, so that your message reaches more people and it is understandable by the layman as well. Largely this, and like one very important thing that I learned towards the end of the class is that as we saw that in Neolithic age, people had time to improve the quality of their lives. Before that, they were just in a mode of survival day to day, so they never had the time to improve the quality of their life. So this was one more thing. So these are my points.
Okay, fair enough. Huge round of applause for Nishita. Now, as a post read of today's class, you will have to read the first chapter of Tamil Nadu's book. We're going very slowly in the beginning so that you can start appreciating what is India. What does India stand for? How does the geography of India look like? How did it shape the history of India? Okay, and you also start learning how to question things. That is extremely critical. Because what you will realize is the entire UPSC journey, you can be asked anything under the sun. And you will have absolutely no chance of answering all the 100 questions. But you will then have to start questioning and making sense out of the 50 questions that you cannot answer. And therefore, conjectures become important. And I want these conjectures to be your, at your beck and call. That no person in the world can make better conjectures than the 100 people sitting in this room. With those 50 questions that no one has any answer to, if you can logically eliminate 2 or 3, that is power, at least for clearing the UPSC exam. Not just clearing UPSC, but also in investing in stock markets. Conjectures are important. Not just investing in stock markets, but also taking decisions in any sphere of your life. Who to date, why to date. You need to have rationale for everything going forward. Muskan, what are your thoughts? Anything that you loved about today's class?
Now, I had a question, if I may, before that.
Yeah, of course.
So we draw the conclusion that the evolution of settlement and human settlement began in the Neolithic period. However, taking into consideration that humans like to segregate themselves in various societies, do we have any reason to believe or any evidence saying that these social structures were created like before that as well?
Can you repeat your question about social structures? I didn't get it.
Okay, so we know that in the prehistoric, in like the Paleolithic as well as the
It's all
Mesolithic,
prehistoric.
because
Paleolithic age, Neolithic
sorry
age,
about that. So
Mesolithic, metal, all
because like
prehistoric.
so because the activities were so primal for the means of survival, right? In terms of like for economic, like they were all doing this hunter gathering and stuff like that. But was there any like, although these societies were small, but was there any like division of like, I don't know how to explain this, like just stratification of societies?
See, stratification of society, it's a very controversial topic. And Dharma Shastra have written a lot about how stratification happened. In fact, when British came to India, they relied immensely on Dharma Shastra to talk about the Hindu civilization. But a lot of it, at least contemporary historians, do not treat it in the right spirit. Because if you were to go to any Hindu household or any household in India, you will also have to read Gita. You will need to give credence to Ved and then realize how stratification happened in that age. But coming to prehistoric, my guess is, and this is again a guess, that in any society, especially in a society where you are hunting and gathering, might will become power. So whosoever has the muscle strength, they will be enormously powerful. But today it's all intelligence, the mental strength, very unique age. But back in the age, that's my assumption, might will become power. So stratification will be based on that itself. And sociologically speaking, every society will have some level of stratification so that division of labor becomes easy and you can find meaning to your work. But in terms of core examples, as of now, I don't have any. Does that answer your question? For some reason, I cannot see you on the screen, but I hope that you got the point. Gurpreet?
I'd like to add something here. As you were saying, it was based on the physical strength. So yeah, there was basically a distinction between there was a distinction in the society in the sense that those who were mighty, those who could fight, were actually on the forefront. They were hunting, they were killing, and they were having the maximum share to the meat that they were getting there. While those who were weak, which were basically the men out there who were not as strong as their counterparts who could go out and fight. So they were not treated very respectfully in the team, and they were doing the lesser jobs in the team, like probably at that point in time, maybe staying at home or taking care of the old and the weak. So they were not directly involved in hunting, and the result was that they were not getting better mates. They were not getting they were not fully fed. I mean, obviously in the rank of the physical strength that you have. So if you were able to go and get meat, you would obviously be in a better position to feed yourself and maybe your mate at home and the kids that you have. And this is like the broader way how that time probably the society functioned.
All right, I think it makes a lot of sense. And this is all conjecture based, at least makes a lot of logical sense because certain credentials of humanity will never change. So they will always be profit maximizing, at least at the family level or at the individual level. Vivek, what are your thoughts?
First of all, I would like to sum up 5 key points for learning for today's session. That is, first of all, the linkage between geography, history, and economics, and how the basis remains the same for part of or emergence of any civilization or settlement, which later on becomes part of the history sooner or later. And that drives economy is the one which drives everything. Like whatever we talked about Dwaab and the fertile land and the contenders fighting for it, known as for the battles in the history. Second point was the emergence of history during the ages of microlith and Paleolithic and like that, how the settlements have arrived. And third thing, I learned the conceptual point that how we can interconnect all the different subjects into a more informative and logical manner. Fourth is that how to think when a question which is out of the syllabus is asked to you, and how to discover something which is not read in the syllabus of the subject at all. So that was the thing. And fifth thing is all about that networking, that I am learning more from the answers of the participant rather than you in totality. That is also a thing. And the last question, can you repeat what you asked the last?
No question. Thank you so much for a wonderful summary, Vivek. Glad to have you part of this community. Jennifer, let's give you a chance to, just tell me 2 things that you loved about the class and 2 key learnings that you will not forget, at least from this class onwards.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so actually I joined in just today and almost when the class was about to finish. So rather I would want to say that it was a little bit difficult to connect to Misfit, I mean through the email. If there could be a number where we could call them in case if there is any query. So it was a hassle connecting to the
So I'm going to be
class.
meeting you all on almost a daily basis, okay? So I'm happy to address your questions. In terms of the backlog issues of emails, I think all the details were sent via email in terms of where the Zoom session is going to. The only concern is that some of you are not able to access the online portal. For this, I have shared a link that you should share, that you should connect on from here on. Just save that link, click on that link, write your email address, write the password, and then go on with it. Okay. What I'll do is I'll ask the team to share that link via email as well to each one of you. I think the platform that we've partnered with for this entire class, for some reason, some emails went into spam. It did not go into the main inbox. But I hope this will get sorted in some time as we proceed with the journey. Do not worry. I think all the recording will be there in the portal. You can get access to it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I hope, so Yash, one last try, 5 things that you learned. But the same question that I posed to Jennifer. 2 things that you absolutely loved about the class and 2 things that you will never forget from here on.
Yes, sir. So I think one very important takeaway for me from this lecture would be the geographical how you said that India can be seen as a geographical composite of the Himalayas, the Indo-Gangetic Plains, and the Southern Peninsula. So, and how you said that the micro-analysis, the regional analysis of India then becomes much more easier if we see it like that. It's like a geographical model of India. So that is one. Second was just what Vivek just said, history and geography are interlinked. Third would be the evolution of our tools from the prehistoric times to the post-historic times. I don't know if that's a word, but how we adapted differently to our circumstances and to our constraints, and how we evolved in a certain direction. And also, so one more thing, we were just talking about how important power is, how important role power plays in close communities. I also wanted to add to that while power is important, being a socially coherent, socially integrated being is also very important for us humans, especially because I cite this study that was done on apes, wherein the top ape, when he exhibited tyrannical features in him, when he became tyrannical in his personality and he tried to be overbearing to all of the other lower apes, what the beta apes did was they ganged up on him and they did unspeakable things to him. And so then his top spot was occupied by someone who was more socially cognizant of the needs of the entire tribe. And so I think apart from power, being a socially integrated being is also very important for us human beings. So yeah, those 2 things are very important for maintaining good tribal relationships.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Look forward to meeting you all tomorrow. And make sure that you read the first chapter of the Tamil Nadu's book. Very easy deal. Should not take more than 15-20 minutes now. And see you tomorrow. Good luck. And thank you so much, Yash, for the wonderful summary.